report.
The Commonwealth Transportation Board is holding a meeting, Stanton District Fall meeting, October 25th, 4 p.m., Blue Ridge Community College in Weir's Cave, just north of Stanton. I plan on attending. If any board members would like to attend, please let me know. Try to figure out the distance to travel. I mentioned this to Mr. Nicely. The request came in his district. First one I've received since I've been here. Someone is interested in hosting a music festival in the Longdale area. Mr. Nicely and I talked about it. In review, once we had the initial request in, and then reviewing the current code, which is adopted in 1999, it requires folks who want to host a music festival to go through a number of steps prior to submittal of a permit request to the county. And they have to do those things up front. Book the entertainment, line up all of the vendors, line up, coordinate with the health department, coordinate with the sheriff's department. All in the way the code is currently written, all those things must be done in advance of your approval. It must come to the Board of Supervisors to be approved. We think the code should be revised to where folks who want to host a music festival would come either to, and that's one of the things I'd like some clarification from you tonight, either come to the Board of Supervisors or handled administratively through staff if the requirements are right for the property, it's owned appropriately and meets certain criteria. We have one property owner who's interested in doing this, and they want to do it in 2017. So what we've worked with them. What we're suggesting is at your next meeting, we'll present you a revised ordinance that changes procedurally the way things are done, and they would effectively either come to the board or go through the county administrator to acquire a permit. They would then have to facilitate the coordination of all the requirements. If they do not submit that within 30, 45 days in advance of the event, the permit would be revoked. This particular one is interested in hosting up to 1,200 people on a piece of agricultural land in the Longdale area. One of the things, as we prepare, and so you're aware that there'll be a public hearing at your next meeting, one of the things I'd like to get some feedback as we draft, and you don't have to give it to me tonight, but as we're drafting the revised ordinance, is the board interested in having all the permits submitted for your review and approval? Would you like them to be handled administratively by the staff based on the requirements of the ordinance? And then do you want, currently they have to get individual permits. Would you like, if someone has a venue, would you want them to have to get a permit for each individual event they would host, or an annual permit for events with requirements spelled out for hosting those events? Traffic control, coordination with the sheriff's office, health department, fire, rescue, EMS, those types of things on site. When you have 1,200 people come in to a community for an event, you need to make sure you have your logistics planned out. So I don't need any feedback tonight, but be thinking about those types of issues, and that'll be on your November agenda. I'll ask if you have questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Or if you want to give feedback now, that's fine.
What about this being staff action with some type of override or review or appeal by the board? I mean, if you want to let staff do it, there ought to be some kind of appeal process for the person if he doesn't agree with staff.
That would certainly be the case. If a permit was denied,
Yeah.
They would be able to come to the board and appeal that decision. One thing to think about on something of a scale, 1,200 people coming into a rural area of Alleghany County, is when they have those events, is not necessarily the denial of a person who applied for the permit, but also the people who live in the community that will be impacted by the traffic, the noise, the lights. So do you want to have an opportunity for the presentation of the event to the board, where there's some dialogue about the event, or do you want to set out those requirements and then just the permit be issued administratively? And it's just something to think about. The request came in the day the agenda was going out. They wanted it to be heard in October. Told them that we couldn't do that. And then as we started reviewing the request, we realized that the current code it just didn't work well. Now, in order to be able to plan those things out, we're going to have to move pretty quickly. In November, have a public hearing on the matter. Depending on the input, you may have some changes. December, you consider vote on it, and then they're back trying to get approval to have an event, coordinated event, and they're looking at doing something in the spring. So that'll be here before we know it, and it takes some logistics and timing for them to be able to do it.
I got one question for you, John, on that. How does other communities in the surrounding area handle those?
Well, it just so happens that we would probably use Botetourt's as an example. Botetourt recently amended theirs with the town center. They have it's a Thursday night music festival, and interesting enough, I think Botetourt had an ordinance very similar to ours. They revised theirs. It's permit is issued administratively in Botetourt, I believe, and it's done on an annual basis. And they're required, the promoters required to submit the information in advance, but the permit's issued, giving them permission to host those events, and then they submit the specific event information 2 weeks, 30 days in advance to make sure everything is taken care of appropriately. We think it, or at least I think it has the potential to be a positive impact on the community, can draw some people to the community if it's done right. But you just need to make sure that you make sure that they're promoting the event and hosting an event the correct way.
Have you seen Botetourt?
Botetourt's.
Agreement.
Have I seen Botetourt's agreement? Yes, sir. Just a reminder for Griff and Suzanne that you both are attending VACO, and one needs to be one of you needs to be the voting member and the other needs to be the alternate. Typically the board has taken an action, but it's not required, and so we didn't add it to the agenda, but just wanted to remind you that if the two of you can decide who will be the...
We thought about it already.
Okay, good enough. We will. Your November meeting is on Wednesday, the day after election.
D-Tech.
Just a couple of things I'll mention. Staff is working really hard, and I think we have a good working relationship with the City of Covington. We're moving forward on some initiatives. We're doing some things with radios. We're doing some things with economic development. We've talked about issuing a joint RFP for our upcoming comp plan with the city. They would be two independent documents, one adopted by the county and one adopted by the city, but work on it together because they blend seamlessly, or they should. Our current comp plans do not. Making sure that the boundaries are planned accordingly. We will be bringing that back after we go through our next planning exercise and we start the process. Our comp plan's up for renewal, so I want you to know that the city manager and myself are discussing issuing a joint RFP for those efforts. And then I'll just mention one other thing. Route 220, if you've traveled that road recently, you'll see a section that they're doing some improvements to. That's about a mile-long section where they're replacing a couple of the narrow bridges, and and that's already under contract. Myself, Ms. Burcham from Clifton Forge, and Delegate Austin met with Ken King, the Salem District Administrator, and Tommy DeGiuliana, who is the project manager for the 220 improvements, 2 weeks ago yesterday. They're planning to issue the formal request for proposals very soon. They're going out design build. They're looking to try to build out phase 1 and phase 2, which are the sections from just north of Eagle Rock to just before you get to Dudley Stretch, coming north. Depending on how those proposals come in and the cost estimates, they may do 2 bid alternates, one being the correction of a horizontal alignment issue as you come into Iron Gate. It would anticipate responses due in the spring of 2017, and then fall of 2017 start date for the improvements to 220 with the 3-year construction season. One of the big things is it's what they're calling a super 2-lane highway. It'll have a 2-foot wide center line median striping with rumble strips in the middle striping, and then 4-foot wide shoulders, and a wider travel lane both north and southbound. So that project's moving forward. There's $79 million allocated to the project, and they're hoping to be able to build phase 1 and phase 2 during that period of time. I'll be happy to answer any questions about